Well, good morning, everyone. We are back once again for another episode of NFL Fantasy Matchup. We're talking about Week 4 waiver wires. As usual, Jed, Jimmy, here we are.
There's a lot of players that are injured this week, so I think the waiver wires are going to be full of people that we need to look at.
Yeah. Hey, look, Week 4, Jed. I mean, how did you do? I mean, are you doing well in your league right now? With as we enter Week 5 here.
I actually this is the first week I went 4-0. So that was and poor Jimmy. Shouldn't have beat Jimmy. Made a mistake though. Had I think he had Pierce on the bench. And that was
Yeah, I had Pierce on. I didn't play Pierce or Miles Sanders, and both of them should have gone off. I should have played them.
Yeah, so but I did pretty well. I went 4-0. Austin Eckler was a big help for me. Pierce was a big help for me. It was just a good week overall. It's interesting though, like in your teams, you should be week 4, like the kind of the weird things we saw in week 1 and week 2 should have been, clearing out. By week 4, you should start to see some pretty significant patterns, and then you can start making some bigger decisions. And I'll just say one for me, Darren Waller has not been playing up to what we were expecting. So I was just looking at, what do I do? Do I trade him? Do I bench him? He's one of the guys, but those are the kinds of things where if you've seen for 4 weeks, you haven't seen the production that you've been expecting. Now you really got to start to think about making some moves.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, because I remember all preseason you were talking about Kyle Pitts, right? And Kyle Pitts he's done one good game, but he's been pretty much absent this entire year in terms of scoring or even putting up some good fantasy numbers.
Yeah, the thing about him is I had him last year and it was similar. Like last year, his first half was really weak. The second half, that was when he really blew up. But yeah, it's hard to say this year if that's Marcus Mariota's fault. Is it because they haven't figured out the scheme? I mean, he is still getting double teamed every week. But it's a hard one. Pitts is a really hard one.
Yeah. Jed, here I was playing you in our keeper league. I lost to you by 5 points because dummy me forgot to put in Jamal Williams. I ended up playing Cam Akers, and I'm sitting there. I completely forgot to change the lineup on this. And I said, okay, Cam Akers, hopefully he'll get 1 touchdown out of this. He ended up getting 1 point. Now, Bobby Wagner actually made it close where he was able to get me at least 10 points here or 9 points here, but man, your Robbie Gold against my Cam Akers and also Bobby Wagner did not work out well.
Yeah, that was sometimes it's funny because I think is that the league that I went and picked up Jared Goff? Was that you or was that Jimmy?
This is the league. No, you do not have Jared Goff in this.
Okay, so I think that was Jimmy. So that Jimmy's league, I was upset that I didn't get Kirk Cousins. Someone dropped Kirk Cousins, and I didn't get him, and I got Jared Goff instead.
And look, he scored like 40.
Exactly.
He scored like 40-something points.
That's why fantasy is so much luck, because if I had got Kirk Cousins, I would have lost, but I got Jared Goff, and he went nuts. So, sometimes you just got to get lucky. That's the way it is.
Yeah. Hey, even against the team that we're playing, Shaq Leonard out for the game. Kyle Pitts was terrible. Other than that, but Dalvin Cook, not very good, but you had Tyreek Hill, you have Mike Williams, Kyler Murray, and Derrick Henry did really well.
Yeah, exactly. That's why, but fantasy is all about just consistency. You just keep rolling with, the same guys you're expecting and hoping, and, you don't want to be benching them when all of a sudden the week that they go off. So it's a tough call.
Yeah. Jim, let me talk with you about the Washington Commanders. Ron Rivera, I understand frustration, but we'll have to be realistic with what we have. They don't have very much. Antonio Gibson, not very good. McKissick is probably one of their better players. Terry McLaurin, not very good. Carson Wentz keeps sitting there making turnovers all the time. What do you think about the Washington Commanders?
Yeah, I've got McLaurin in 2 of my teams, and I'm trying to decide whether or not I should bench him, because this week he just scored in double digits. He didn't do anything. And usually the points that he scored has been in garbage time. Gibson, started off strong, not doing too well. Logan Thomas is not doing well. Even Dotson, their rookie wide receiver. But a lot of it is because of their because of the quarterback. Now, Brian Robinson, he was the one player who got shot and placed on injured reserve. He's on the waiver wire right now, injured, and some people have said some good things about him. So I've been at least monitoring him.
Yeah, I have him on one team just sitting on my IR. There's a league I'm in that has 2 IR spots, so I put him in one. Yeah, I mean, you never know with that. But thing there is, I think it's really matchup dependent. Like Carson Wentz, he can score. It's just it's got to be against a defense that can't rush the quarterback. If the
those turnovers are killing him.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
He does not make. I mean, that 1 year when I think didn't he win MVP? He was great, but after that, he just doesn't make smart decisions, Carson Wentz.
Well, his first 2 games this year were good. It's just the last couple, basically the line hasn't held up. And once they get to him, then he makes bad decisions. So you just got to, it's totally matchup dependent. You got to really look at what defense he's playing against.
Yeah, if you look at Terry McLaurin, 2 catches, 15 yards. Antonio Gibson, 13 carries, 49 yards. But on the other hand, Jeff, look at the team that they're playing. Who would have thought the Dallas Cowboys would be so good?
Cooper Rush.
Defense?
Yeah. Cooper Rush is giving them. It's great. Like they can now take their time with Dak. Although that's bad for me. I've got Dak sitting on the bench. So I think though that we'll see if he's supposed to come back this week, but they may decide to give him another game to heal up.
So today the reports out of practice is that he can't even move his thumb yet. So they said that they're going to have to give him another week or 2.
Yeah,
so I don't think he's coming back.
It's a great luxury to have. I mean, Rush has been playing well. So,
Jed, let me ask you a quick question. Cooper Rush wins this 5th game. You think there's a quarterback controversy?
There's no controversy at all. The money, go where the money is. There's no controversy. I think it's just, like I said, it's a luxury. They don't have to rush him back. But whenever he says he's ready, then they're going to go with him. So definitely but I was just trying to see. So, they're playing the Rams. So you don't want to run out there and pick up Rush. I mean, that's good. That's going to be a tall order.
I do think Michael Gallup, though, right? Like CeeDee Lamb's shown that he's been doing well. Michael Gallup scored double digits this past week. The running game this week was non-existent, so they really fed their receivers. And so I think Gallup's a good pickup. He's a free agent on a lot of waiver wires.
Jim, you and I made a trade for Ezekiel Elliott. Did you end up playing him? He did have 19 carries, 49 yards.
Yeah, so we made this trade, Jed. And I mean, I think long-term it should work out, right? But it was Jamal Williams for Ezekiel Elliott. And Tommy and I were playing with each other. That was a difference maker because essentially I took Ezekiel Elliott, scored 9 points. He took Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams scored 28 points. And that was the game right there, right? So my hope, though, is I think DeAndre Swift is supposed to come back this week or next week. I think he's questionable. So I'm hoping long-term Ezekiel Elliott will be the better play because he can at least get you 9 to 15 points a game.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I've been big on Pollard all along, waiting for them to go away from Elliott, but they seem to be sticking with him. So you might be right.
Yeah.
This is my preseason favorite. This was my Antonio Gibson, Javonte Williams out for the season with a torn ACL.
Yeah, that's really sad. I saw that Murray is the big pickup, really. The Denver backup now, Latavius Murray. So he's probably going to be one of your top waiver wire pickups.
Well, I was surprised. Like he got this is what Tommy wrote. He got picked off the Saints practice squad. Who's that other guy? Who was the other guy that Melvin
Boone is another guy.
Yeah. I was paying attention to him, but one of the things that they were saying is he also plays special teams, so they want to really kind of keep him on special teams. So that's why they signed Latavius Murray. But I think Murray's a good pickup for those guys.
Yeah. Jim, what do you think? Russell Wilson has a right shoulder injury. He has not been doing very well. They were comparing him and Geno Smith. Geno Smith has outplayed Russell Wilson.
Mm-hmm. But I will say, like, Cortland Sutton has been pretty good as a fantasy player this year, right? So whatever happens, I still think some people have dumped Jerry Jeudy. So I picked up Jerry Jeudy in one of the leagues. I still think the receivers are going to do pretty good, especially now with Javonte Williams out. But let's just see what happens to Russell Wilson.
Yeah. Jed, on the flip side with the Raiders here, Josh Jacobs, 28 carries, 144 yards. Devontae Adams, 9 receptions, 101 yards. But as we talked about, Darren Waller, 3 catches, 24 yards.
Yeah, disappointing still. And Devonte Adams, even I would say that basically I was a lifesaver of a game, but he still is not living up to his top five, top three billing. Most people spent probably either a first round or second round pick to get him. So you still have not gotten the return on that. I don't know what is wrong with the Raiders. Derek Carr has not looked the same. This is a team we had high expectations for with Adams coming in, and it just has not panned out. And honestly, I don't know why, guys. So, I mean, you got to still play him. Adams, you are not going to be dropping him. If you're trading him, you're not going to get the value back. So you got to still play him and start him. But it's been really disappointing.
But Josh Jacobs been a surprise. I think most people picked him in the 4th or 5th round. He was like the number 8 to 10 running back drafted. People have been getting good value. There are people like Javonte Williams, other players that went higher. And Josh Jacobs has been great.
It's funny, Josh Jacobs and James Robinson. I feel like they're the same guy.
Yeah.
They're like small, short, stocky, but they both have been very good value. And even Miles Sanders, I would say, a lot of people, thought Sanders was not going to be durable and not going to really score, and he's been doing pretty well too.
Yeah, Josh Jacobs in the last 5 games, in the opening game, he had 5 carries for 30 yards, but that suddenly increased to 10 carries, 19 carries, 13 carries this past week, 28 carries with his first 2 touchdowns this past week. Jim, Tua will not be playing in week 5, and so he got that concussion. What do you think is going to happen with his other 2 receivers in light of the very fact that he will not be playing in week 5?
I mean, I still think that they're going to have consistent numbers, right? I don't think the numbers are going to be there like it was the last couple of games that Tua played. I still expect. Jalen Waddle did not have a good game, but Tyreek Hill had some good numbers this week. I think Bridgewater's a serviceable quarterback. You're just hoping that Tua will come back in the next few weeks as well too. But at least with the Dolphins, the thing I've been looking at is people have been saying Raheem Mostert is going to be the number 1 running back going forward, and they were saying, I don't think Chase Edmonds is worth the spot on your lineup.
Yeah, Jed, I'm telling you, Tyreek Hill, 10 catches, 160 yards. How do you think he's going to do in light of the fact that Teddy Bridgewater is now going to be at least a starting quarterback in week 5?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I mean, Hill, I have really been. This is my first year. You guys know I paid almost $100 to get Hill in our keeper league, and it was between him and Pittman, and then Cortland Sutton too. And he's just really proved that his talent is definitely not system level. It's definitely beyond that because now he's doing with different quarterbacks. I'm not worried. I think Hill's going to get his. It may not be 10 for 160, but they're going to feed him the ball. He's the clear superstar on that team, so I'm really not concerned. And if anything, I've been very happy with Hill, especially for a keeper league. I think I'm pretty much set there for a while.
How long do you guys think Tua is going to be out for? Do you think it's just going to be week 5, or do you think a couple more weeks?
Probably just week 5, I think.
I mean, even just from a PR standpoint, they had to sit him this week.
Yeah.
I mean, they took such a PR hit for all of that. And you guys saw that they fired the doctor.
The independent doctor that was on the sidelines.
Yeah, which I totally agree with that. But hopefully it's not more than
okay. But so here's the question. I've been seeing a lot of people in our leagues, 2 of the leagues that I'm part of, somebody's already dropped Tua. Would you pick up Tua?
Yeah, I think Tua is worth a pickup and a stash. Even if you have to wait a couple weeks. Well, it depends if you need a quarterback. Like for me, I'll see. I just said I'm playing Jared Goff because I had Dak Prescott. So if someone dropped Tua, I'd pick him up.
Yeah. Jim, on the other hand, with Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Burrow did get a very, very good game, 287 yards, 2 touchdowns. Joe Mixon, you know what? A lot of times he tends to be touchdown dependent. The carries are there, but the yards isn't there, only 61 yards.
Yeah. So, I don't know. They've just got so many weapons, right? So I think going back to like, how are we doing in some of our leagues? Week 4, I've been disappointed with how Jamar Chase is doing. T. Higgins has really been the receiver that's really scored a lot of those points. I'm just hoping that Jamar Chase the next couple of weeks will start regain his form that he had last year. But yeah, Joe Mixon. Here's the thing: you always know what you're going to get from Joe Mixon. You're going to get some double digits, most likely in the teens. I'm happy with that. I wish there was more, but thus far I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that to me is just it's Cincinnati. The bottom line is Cincinnati spent all this money to improve their offensive line, and I
Well,
think
their
they've
offensive stinks.
yeah, I think they've given up more sacks through the first 4 weeks than they did last year. So that's the problem. It's the same problem as last year, but I think they'll figure it out, and you'll start to see Cincinnati's offense get better. They have a tough matchup though. I was just looking; they're playing Baltimore this week in Baltimore, so that's going to be a tough one.
Are you glad you kept Murray versus Burrows?
Yeah, Murray over. I mean, Murray, I've been surprised. I expected him not to play too well the first 4 or 5 weeks without,
DeAndre Hopkins.
without DeAndre Hopkins. He's, again, and this is why I picked him over Burrows, is I figured that his legs, his rushing yards would make up for any deficiencies. And that's exactly what's happened. Like his points, his passing yardage has not been that great, but if you put in his rushing yardage totals, then he's fine.
I know you're going to go. I am trying to decide if I want to keep Joe Burrows, right? Because Joe Burrows he's okay, but he's scoring me what 19, average 18, 19 points every week. There, and then I'm watching people like Jared Goff, who's going off and scored 30 something points. And so there's a part of me that was like, is it time to dump him? But again, last year he did the same thing. He started off really slow, and towards the end of the season, he just went off. So I hate to give up on him so fast.
Yeah, I agree. This year, if anything, though, has been really the year of the quarterback scoring because Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, of course, Josh Allen, but those guys, people who drafted them and spent an earlier round draft pick on those guys have paid off because they've gotten so many, so much more points.
Hey, look, I'm watching Noah, who is in our keeper league. Noah was not paying attention. He had auto draft, and suddenly they picked up some quarterbacks and everything. He's in first place. He's at 3-0, I think 4-0 right now.
Exactly. That I love it when that happens. Auto draft ends up winning for the league. That can totally happen. That's fantasy.
Looking at some quarterbacks in terms of a keeper league, Kenny Pickett might be a decent pickup. I mean, he just got named today as the permanent starter for Pittsburgh. He did okay, but he's got some good players around him. I actually think that I would not be surprised if at the end of the year, a Kenny Pickett will be somebody who's going to be very fantasy relevant.
Yeah, well, I'm very high on George Pickens, the wide receiver.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I'm definitely excited for that switch. And I'm hoping that, the two of them, because hopefully that connection through training camp and whatnot, will pay off here. So we'll see.
Before we go over the Pittsburgh Steelers, that is coming up in a few slides here. The one thing I want to talk about, Jed, is one of the more exciting games that no one ever anticipated: the Seattle Seahawks against the Detroit Lions. DeAndre Swift is gone. Amon-Ra St. Brown is gone. TJ Hawkinson, wow, did he do well? TJ Hawkinson had 8 receptions, 179 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, set the record for Detroit tight ends. But you could have seen that coming because he didn't have anyone else to throw to. But you couldn't have seen coming a 48-45 game. I mean, just so many points going around. I was watching that game. It was a lot of fun. It was basically like who's going to have the ball last is going to win.
I don't know if you guys knew this. Did you know that Detroit is averaging 35 points per game, but their defense is allowing 35.3 points a game? So if they continue to go down this route, I mean, play the Detroit players and then play the people that they're playing against as well, too, because it's going to be high scoring.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I actually think Detroit is looking better than they have. If not for a couple things, like they could have beat Philly that one game. I mean, they've definitely had some close games. So their offenses look great, but you're right. The defense is just horrendous. So.
You know who I have sitting on my IR in a couple of leagues? Jameson Williams. Just sitting there. I don't know when he's going to come in, but look, he's a good receiver that could potentially be like their good number 2 receiver after Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Jim, if you had Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers and Jared Goff was sitting on there, would you eventually replace one of those with the Jared Goff?
Yeah, I think so. I think I would really consider. I mean, I still have high hopes for Aaron Rodgers, because I think Dobbs is coming together, Lazard's coming together, or he's got Christian Watson. I actually would really consider taking Jared Goff over like Tom Brady.
Yeah, I agree on Rodgers. This is the same story we get every year. He starts off slow, kind of working in the new guys, and then once they catch fire, it's gangbusters. So
well, and Brady, I mean, here's my thing with Brady, right? Like, I feel like I think he's distracted, and he's got some good receivers, but he's at a point in his life where, in his career, where he doesn't really need to score that many points. As long as he can control the game, he's fine. I don't think you're going to, at least right now, I don't see a lot of big fantasy points coming from him.
Yeah, reports are that they both hired divorce lawyers. So
Oh, really?
his life is, I think, going to distract the guy. So I agree on Brady.
Jed, speaking on the other side, Seattle, look, we know about DK Metcalf, 7 catches, 149 yards. But here's the other ones I want to point to. Rashad Penny, 17 carries, 151 yards. Will Dissly continues to do really, really well. 4 catches, 39 yards, but he's a touchdown machine. And then also Tyler Lockett had a decent day with 91 yards.
Yeah, well, I'm a Penny fan, and if you watch the game, he looked good. He had that one touchdown run straight up the gut that looked really nice. And so, I mean, I've liked Penny for a long time, but there's definitely some points to be had there. We talked about the deficiencies at tight end, and so if you're looking for a tight end, then Dissly is definitely someone to look at.
There's actually some pretty good tight ends out there, right? Dissly's good. Everett for Chargers. Higbee is the second leading receiver after Cooper Kupp for the Chargers. I mean, all of these guys are better than Waller and Kyle Pitts. The problem is, do you want to dump those two, right? Who you drafted pretty high for some of these guys?
Yeah.
Jim, Cooper Rush, we talked about him as well too. Next one, Aaron Rodgers. This way of winning is not sustainable. They're doing well, but at the same time, man, it's not great. Besides Dobbs and the 2 running back, do you like maybe Lazard? Do you like anyone
Lazard?
else?
Yeah. Well, Dobbs, I don't know. Have you guys seen the last couple of weeks? He's been the leader in terms of receptions for receivers. And so I actually think that Dobbs will be good for him, but he does need some help. I think if he can find one more receiver, because right now Christian Watson hasn't really been relevant.
Yep. Jed, who would have thought? I mean, 27-24 in overtime, they lose Brian Hoyer. And so suddenly now they're starting this rookie quarterback. They did pretty well. Zeppo.
Oh yeah, I was watching that game. I was rooting for him, and he looked great. This rookie quarterback came in, and man, he looked poised. He did not look like he was out of his element. He was making solid throws. Really, they had a great chance there at the end, and I thought they were going to pull it off, but just couldn't. It was a good sign for New England. 2 rookies, really, the rookie quarterback, and then they had there was a rookie wide receiver too that they were connecting with. Who I forgot who the leading wide receiver was for New England, but overall, I mean, a good win for New England. Yeah. And if you guys remember, we talked about that. It was like a 9-point spread or something, and it was like, look, this is New England. It's not going to go that high, and sure enough, they kept it. They almost won it.
Yeah.
Just so you know, in terms of leading wide receiver was Nelson Aguilar. Devontae Parker did come up with, he had 2 catches, 24 yards, but he did catch 1 touchdown. On the separate end, Jim, I mean, you have Harris as well as Ramondre Stevenson, 86 yards and 66 yards. Okay. I mean, Damian Harris had 1 touchdown. Ramondre Stevenson, we're always waiting. It seems like we're always waiting for that breakout game for Ramondre Stevenson.
Yeah. Damian Harris is actually pretty good. I will say I'm re-looking at him, even though I dumped him in one of my leagues. He scored double digits in each of the last 4 games this season. He's doing pretty good. And I mean, right now, Ramondre Stevenson, even though he leads in terms of receptions compared to Damian Harris, Damian Harris still has more rushing attempts and yards than Ramondre Stevenson has.
Yeah. And Jed, I mean, Aaron Rodgers, 251 yards, 2 touchdown back, and Allen Lazard got 116 yards. So they didn't do terribly bad. It's not like Aaron Rodgers-esque, but it wasn't too bad.
Yeah, no. And as we said, I mean, they're figuring things out. Like Rodgers is figuring out he's got to throw to these wide receivers. So I think it's going to come around. I would not give up on that.
No,
team.
and Dobbs is actually, I mean, I think Dobbs is really going to be, he's going to come on the second half of the season. He's going to be really good.
Yeah, Dobbs and Pickens, I mean, we've said that in the beginning. You just had to wait. And sure enough, week after week 4, I think these guys are going to really break out.
I mean, think about, I know we're going to talk about Atlanta. Think about all the good receivers, right? Olave, you got Drake London, you've got Dobbs, you've got, who else did you just talk about? Pickens, right?
Yeah.
Those are good receivers that if you have a dynasty, you want to keep them on your dynasty.
Yeah. Jen, I still remember last week we were talking about you were advocating Trey Cordero Patterson.
Yeah, I mean, not because of the injury, obviously, but I just felt like he he just couldn't sustain that level of production. But yeah, unfortunate to see the injury. He was the leading. He was at. I think he was the second leading rusher up
Rusher,
until
he was, yeah.
between
Mhm.
before last week.
Yeah.
So great, but feel bad for the guy.
Yeah, Algier might be a good pickup. He scored 13 fantasy points this week. He was the second leading rusher with like 80 something yards, and he was great. I think we talked about last week. He's great in college.
Yeah, Atlanta is another team. Atlanta and Indianapolis are the two teams that I just can't figure them out because I feel like they have so much talent, but they just can't put together big scoring games. Like they're always scoring in the teens or the low 20s. And the bottom line is you got to get touchdowns. If you don't have enough touchdowns to go around, you can't have those big games. So it's been disappointing.
Jed, who's been more disappointing, Kyle Pitts or Allen Robinson?
Kyle Pitts for sure. You drafted Kyle Pitts to be not only number one, but ideally like top 3, top 5. Allen Robinson, I think, disappointing, but you didn't expect him to be, like he was kind of, hopefully a 2, like a solid number 2. He wasn't like a number 1.
Okay, let me ask you guys a question. Who's the backup quarterback for Atlanta Falcons that they've been calling for to start?
The rookie, right?
Desmond Ridder.
Ooh.
Yeah, right. They've been calling for Desmond Ridder. He was drafted in the 3rd round, but he's okay. But they want him to replace Marcus Mariota.
Yeah. Jim, on the Cleveland Browns, look, Nick Chubb's 90 carries, 118 yards, leads the NFL. But it's David Njoku who continues to do pretty well. Another 5 catches for 73 yards here.
Yeah, he's good. I like him. I mean, Jacoby Brissett, he's always going to be pretty consistent. The one good thing about some of these backup quarterbacks is they know that they need to use their tight end. So you're seeing the Geno Smiths of the world, the Matthew Staffords of the world, the ones who can't throw, who doesn't have the arm anymore, they utilize their quarterbacks pretty well.
For you, Amari Cooper, 1 catch, 9 yards. Is he still in your lineup every single week?
I'm not a big Amari Cooper fan. I think he did pretty well. I think he's just gotten old, So he's not. I think he's I always see him as Jarvis Landry. They're going to always get you some consistent points, but they're not going to score a lot of points, and so their ceiling is not that high.
Hey, do you guys know why I'm seeing OBJ get picked up in a couple leagues? Is something happen?
No, but he's pretty high. I think everyone's thinking there's some people here. Let me pull it up.
In about 3 weeks, they think that he's ready to come back and pick a team. Most likely it'll be Rams. But yes, if you did look at Yahoo, he suddenly has shot up in terms of all the ads.
I think it's because of week 6, because after week 6 is when they can sign like the free agents. Like there's some reason where after week 6 becomes more basically viable to sign. Like they're either the contracts aren't guaranteed or something. There's something that it's not as risky for the teams, and so that's what I think. That's probably what it is. I think he's going to be picked up.
So here's a couple of headlines: Bills and Rams headline 2022 destinations. But recently he was spotted stopping by Giants Stadium, which fueled rumors that he might go back to the Giants.
Maybe that's what it was.
I wouldn't go back to the Giants. You see their line; they've got nobody for Daniel Jones. If I want to go back to the Super Bowl and do well, I'm going to go back to either the Rams or the Bills.
Yep. All right. Speaking of that, Saquon Barkley. Look, I'm telling you, Daniel Jones goes out. Tyrod Taylor always gets injured. He is always getting injured.
Yeah, but Saquon Barkley, what a great, again, we've been talking about it. If he can stay healthy, this is the guy you really lucked out if you got him, because he's playing. If you watch that game, he looked great.
Yeah. Well, okay, so, but here's the thing. Matthew Breida is his backup running back. Yeah. I think for a lot of these running backs, and you're seeing it this week, right? If you have a spot on your lineup, forget the backup wide receiver unless that person's really good. Go for a backup running back, because the chances on Breida will be fantasy relevant towards the end of the year is pretty high compared to some of these receivers.
Did Madison score more than Dalvin Cook?
No, Dalvin Cook scored more, but he did score a touchdown. And he's iffy because he's still wearing that brace on his shoulder. You never know, right? One hit in the wrong place, Madison's your starter.
Yeah, well, I
15, 20 fantasy points.
I've been saying you could play Madison even if Cook plays, because Madison is that good. So, yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. Jim, on the other flip side of it, Justin Fields, Darnell Mooney, who's been dropped in a lot of leagues, 4 catches, 94 yards. What do you think about that one?
I mean, I was listening to the Chicago radio stations, and they're trying to make an attempt, right? They're trying to push Darnell Mooney. Who was it? They said I was reading. They were talking about how Cole Kmet is most likely not going to meet expectations, but they still have high hopes on Darnell Mooney, and they're going to make sure that he works. So,
yep. Khalil Herbert, Jed, 19 catches, 77 yards. I mean, do you think he has when David Montgomery is healthy, you think Herbert might still be their starting running back here?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. He's looked pretty good. I mean, even though, again, the problem with the Bears is just lack of touchdowns, the whole offense in general. But when he's had the opportunities, he's looked good. So I don't know. That's a really good question.
Yep. Sam Darnold, Jim, how did Christian McCaffrey do for you?
Sucks. I'm trying to trade him. Look, seriously, if someone came to me today and said, "Look, we'll take Christian McCaffrey and we'll give you, let's say, a Dobbs and I don't know, give me another good like a Pickens, Dobbs and Pickens." If I had a dynasty league, I would seriously think about it, because Christian Watts, they have not. I don't know what's going on, but he didn't score much. I mean, he got 1 touchdown that saved him, but up until then, he only had like 8 fantasy points.
Yeah. Jed, since you have Kyler Murray, I want to pick your brain on the Arizona Cardinals. James Conner did okay, but anyone that you were excited about? Marquise Brown, Zach Ertz, 47 yards, 88 yards, 1 touchdown. What do you think about the Arizona?
You could have picked Marquise Brown. Like, you could have predicted that he would score because, this was the former Sooner Bowl, basically. Kyler Murray against Baker Mayfield, right? So this you knew Marquise Brown was going to step up, but he's so inconsistent. That's the problem. So no, I personally, until Hopkins comes back, there's not a wide receiver I'm excited about in Arizona.
Not even what's his name, Dortch. Yeah.
No. I do think once Hopkins comes back, though, give him maybe a week to get into like game shape, but I think he's going to be fine. And Murray's looked pretty sharp.
That's what Tommy's waiting for. He's been
sitting out all my lineups. I can't put in my IRR. He's been sitting there all day. Yeah. Now, speaking of this, here's something I did not do, Jed. I was telling Jimmy about this. Is I ended up trading Deebo Samuel for Christian Kirk. And the reason I did that is I didn't pay attention to my lineup. And so I had put an offer out for Deebo Samuel for Christian Kirk way before when week 4 ended. And the guy just sat on it. And I just completely forgot about it. And then so yesterday I'm sitting in a meeting. I'm sitting there, trade process. I said, trade the process and approved. What kind of trade was approved? They realized, oh my gosh, he accepted my Christian Kirk for Deebo Samuel.
That's not.
Plus, after Monday's game, where Deebo went off with Jimmy G, I would have accepted that as well too.
Yeah, no, that's definitely. I mean, that was smart on that guy's part, but I think you might be okay. I mean, Christian Kirk has been, he'll be fine, and I'm the Jags, man. They're legit. Everyone like who was down on the Jags, do not miss that guy. That is a good team with a good defense. They're gonna be fine. So you may end up working, but man, Deebo Samuel's looked great in that game.
Yeah,
I think the better receiver, I like Zay Jones. I think Zay Jones is a really good receiver. I think he's a good, legitimate number 2 for them.
Now, the only thing a lot of times with Deebo Samuel, we know that he tends to be injury prone a lot of times. He does have a hamstring or something like that will get him out. Christian Kirk seems to be on the rise as well, too. Now, here's my dilemma, suddenly. I have Jalen Waddle, Amon-Ra St. Brown in terms of wide receivers. I have Keenan Allen. I have DeAndre Hopkins, Chris Godwin. I have a lot of wide receivers along with Christian Kirk here.
You have a lot of injury-prone wide receivers.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and I'm hoping that everyone gets healthy, and I walk into the playoffs with this lineup where I start training a bunch of different people.
I would say right now, Amon-Ra St. Brown maybe is the best fantasy producer out of that group. Unless, you never know, Godwin will get better here.
Yep. And Damian Pierce and J.K. Dobbins has been on my team. J.K. Dobbins, did you guys see him? He did really, really well this past week.
He did. He had a really good game. I saw that. So anyone who sat and waited, that was good.
But guess who's being taken off IR today? Gus Edwards. Yeah, I don't know if that will affect, but remember when Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins were together, they actually had them sharing carries. So let's just see what happens this week with Gus Edwards coming back.
Yeah. Speaking of that, Jed, you mentioned this. Tom Brady and his wife hired divorce lawyers.
Yeah, that was sad to see. I don't ever want anyone's marriage to fail, so that's unfortunate. But it's fantasy relevant because when your stuff's going messed up at home, how do you concentrate while you're on the field? It's difficult.
Let's go through a couple of these now. I want to hear from waiver wires as well too. Jonathan Taylor, there's a good chance he may not play. If he's not playing, any of you guys starting Naheem Hines right away?
I will. I've got him on one of my teams. I'll start him. I mean, well, actually, I'll see who like I said, Indianapolis, I've been disappointed with overall. They're playing the Broncos, and it's Thursday, so that's an interesting one. I actually think, I would play Hines in that.
Yeah, most likely Taylor's not. If they're going to play Thursday, Taylor's not going to play.
Yep. Confident. Here we go. Kenny Pickett, we talked about that. Dak Prescott can't. Trevor Lawrence, Cooper Kupp. Let's see. That's it. I mean, that's all of our news and notes. Let's talk a little bit about wires. Jim, who are your primary wires for this week?
Yeah, so I actually really hold on. I'm pulling up my lineup right now. Here's Latavius Murray. I think we talked about him. He recently got picked up by Denver. I think he is a hot waiver wire pickup. Algier, the running back from Atlanta, for the injured Cordell Patterson. Raheem Mostert. No one really knows who's the lead back there, him or Chase Edmonds. Jared Goff is on a lot of waiver wires. Pickens, you got Gordon, but the two other people I'll end up with Pacheco. If you have a spot, I actually think that Pacheco's a good running back who, if anything happens tomorrow to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Pacheco's the other person that you want to look at, and then also Kenny Pickett. Pickett, I think he's got three good receivers, right? He's got Claypool, he's got Pickens, and he's also got DeAndre Johnson. And I think Pickett actually is going to be pretty good for people.
Jed, let me ask you a quick question. If you had to put all your money, let's say $10 on the player this week, is there a player that stands out? You're going to say, I'm going to put at least $10 to $15 on this player.
You mean on to offer the waivers?
Yep.
Wait.
Yeah.
I'll guess. Can I guess? Pickens.
I do like Pickens. I mean, basically, it's if you think that they're going to be a starter, to me, it's worth it. Like, to me, if your budget is $100, I'm thinking of that as roughly, 2 to 3 starters. So you're going to spend at least 1/3 of your budget, maybe half of your budget. So, and then you have to look long term. That's why I would say, someone like a Pickens is worth it because you're looking at least like half the season you're going to get starting potential out of them. On the other hand, like Murray, we just got to see, like, we think he's going to be good. But he's also, we talked about Boone, who's behind him. You don't know. It could be a timeshare, so I think it's a little bit more up in the air.
Yeah. Okay, let me ask you a quick question. If Melvin Gordon, in one of the leagues I play in, Melvin Gordon is sitting there on waiver wire, are you putting $15 on Melvin Gordon?
I'm not.
No. I mean, Melvin Gordon has been fumbling a lot. I think he'll be the starter now that Javonte Williams is out. But give him a couple fumbles, and you're going to get Murray to come in.
Yeah. Jim, if you had a chance between Mostert, Boone, or Algier, who are you picking?
You know what? I would pick Algier out of that group. I actually like Algier a lot. I think he did really well this week. Who knows how long Cordell Patterson's going to be out? Minimum 4 to 6 games. I would go Algier.
Jed, what do you think of Rashad White? He played 24 snaps, finished for 14.6 fantasy points. He's the backup to Leonard Fournette. What do you think of him?
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
I was so frustrated. Leonard Fournette was supposed to score 14, 15 points a game, and then now they got this rookie who's taking away all his snaps.
Well, Fournette, is not going to last through the whole season at that level of, he's an old dude. They can't play him that much. So,
yeah. Other than that, if you want a quarterback, Jared Goff is out there, like Jimmy said. Geno Smith is out there. And in terms of wide receiver, Michael Gallup, Jim, if you had a chance between George Pickens or Michael Gallup, who you're looking at?
You know what? Here's this is what I was thinking about. I think by the end of the fantasy season, by the end of 2022, Pickens is going to be the better receiver. but Gallup will give you some consistent numbers.
Yep. Any other players, Jed, as we wrap up here? Corey Davis, Alec Pierce, like any of these guys at all?
No, I think the only other one, I mean, we did mention Gallup. I would just say that again. I think Gallup, even with either Rush or with Prescott coming back, I think Gallup is in a good position.
Yeah.
So if he's still sitting out there, that's someone I might target.
Guys, I'm looking at a couple of the waiver wires. I am surprised how many leagues have Darnell Mooney sitting out there.
Yep. Hey, after this, I'm going to go and sit there and look through all my waiver wires and see what I can come up with as well too.
Yeah,
I am all set for my NBA basketball. I'm very excited about it, and now we're going to have to sit there and go through waiver wires and see what happens.
Hey, I want to say one thing on the NBA because we mentioned the NBA. So now that we've heard more about the Boston Celtics coach, I definitely just want to be like, we didn't know all the information. It sounds horrible now. So to me,
did they come out with more of it? I haven't kept up with it.
Yeah. Like now it's more about definitely the positional power. Like it's sounding like it maybe was even someone who's kind of almost like an intern level. And so it sounds really, really bad. And it's supposedly not more than one. So it's supposedly like more than one person. And actually, I think they were saying like the big issue was that the last one was basically like a couple who both worked for the Celtics. Like one might have even been like a minority owner, the husband or something. But anyway, it sounds much worse than when we first heard it. It didn't, because they made it sound like it was all consensual, and now it's sounding like no, there was definitely a power dynamic involved. And so to me, it's like okay, because someone's even saying that he may never coach again in the NBA. So
he's such a good coach. I mean,
well,
yeah.
To me, what the telltale sign was that no players came out supporting him after all of this came out. Like none of the Celtics starters came out and said, hey, like we need to protect our coach or we believe in our coach. There was not a peep. And so that tells you that they knew there was something going on in the background and this guy's, going to be done.
Yeah. With that said, and we'll probably see you on Friday as we wrap up and looking forward to Thursday's night's game and let's see what happens.
Yep. Good luck.
All right. Talk soon.